Miko and I could not afford the cost of a Motorola phone, $3,500 a piece, which at the time was much more than the annual wage of a Zairian citizen. We made a deal with the government. They would purchase the handsets, and we purchased the system. We found a cheaper system than made by a vendor in Northern Virginia, which seemed fine enough. But we had given our word that we would be able to make this happen for President Mobutu and his government. So now we found stuck in the middle. We had a customer, we had a product, we had a system. What we did not have was control of our product. And that meant we did not have control of our business. And so in reality, we did not have control of our destiny. What did we do? We bought our destiny. So we bought the small company in Virginia. So after being in the business for well over a year, we were finally actually in business. Sort of. Except for some minor details that were a little bit of a nuisance. Like legal rights, to use the airwaves. Like the needed cooperation of the existing phone companies. Oh yeah, like any money to build the equipment, like the towers and other equipment and infrastructure to handle call traffic. So we got back on our horses and rode into the big companies to see if they had some spare change. Or to see at least they had maybe strong sense of humor to finance an airline executive, a hotel builder, and a computer distributor in a business they were in for a year before they even had a product to sell. But what we did have going for us was something that kept competition away. You see, two of us on this earth, and only the two of us, were 100%, make 1,000% committed to bringing the cell phone with all the economic advantages of this advanced form of communications to Zaire, a country that is so often shunned in an economic factor in the global economy. So while we did not have much going for us, we did not also have competition. But I think one real difference is getting the funds we needed was that no one questioned our commitment and our perseverance that we showed, starting with the day Miko read that article and began chasing his dream, dragging me along with him. So we were able to find financial willing partners for a decade by using an old business trick. We paid people back. We honored our agreements. We had strong recommendations from the past about our trustworthiness. The first backers were Motorola and the World Bank. And I remember, he now died, Isaac Finkman of Motorola, saying something to me I will never forget. He said, "Joe, we do not lend to business. We lend to people." Although it seems like a lot of paperwork, it's really not hard a decision when you base decisions on the people behind the deals. Thankfully, Miko was able to pull all of his remarkable engineering, shall I say creativity, right into the financial paperwork for the financing. When I saw Miko's projections of how many customers we will have in the DRC, I did have to suggest that he might want to check what the total population was and maybe cut his number a little bit. So we're not going to be accused to have more customers than we had people. Of course, despite all of the nice words said about our trustworthiness and all the friendliness, it did not stop the backers from extracting their pound of flesh. Let me put it this way. I'm especially happy to see Miko's family here because all of them were mortgaged, including the dog if they had one. We also needed legal rights. We needed rights to use the airwaves. But there was a slight problem in that regard too. You see, it was not so much as convincing government officials to agree with us making the regulatory changes we needed. The problem, believe it or not, nobody even knew what the law was and what the law needed, how the law needed to be changed. When we said we need to make sure the country's telecommunications law allows us to do what we agreed to do and give us the rights we need, everyone said, sure, of course, no problem. We'll do what Miko and you say. But when we said, great, please do the necessary drafting, they said, we'd love to, but we don't know what it is that we were changing. Nobody knows the law. Nobody even knew where to find it. Finally, it turned out that the law that we had to deal with, not only was it 46 years old, it went back to 1941. It was also Belgian. The country did not even have its own communication code. What a reminder that was, and how far the country was behind and needed to go to catch up with the global telecommunications. But one by one, the pieces started falling into place. We obtained the necessary licenses, and the government made good to their word. They granted us the regulations that we needed, and the existing companies were required to cooperate. Meanwhile, Miko was unbelievably tireless in making sure that we were putting into place a first-class, gold-star operation. Part of that was the hiring of top talented engineers from the best schools. I personally stayed out of this. Not because I had nothing to contribute, which I didn't, but I couldn't imagine how he was going to pull this one off. And I didn't want to find out. Miko was literally competing with top international companies, with Zairian operations like General Electric, IBM, and top national companies, like the established phone companies. And he had to tell candidates, please come and work for a company that really doesn't exist, and whose only business was to run a test program for 12 months with the government to see if a measly 200 phones would work. And we're incurring large debts, and the phones don't work. We're out of business. Meanwhile, Mr. and Miss Graduate Engineer, could you please work tirelessly for us setting up a comprehensive telecom operation? Hell of a recruiting pitch, but he pulled it off. Years later, I came to learn why. When you get right down to it, Miko was as good an engineer as there was in the entire country. And that is not an exaggeration. This would become apparent to our recruits quickly when they would meet with Miko. And so when it came down to it, they joined us because they would get to work with him and learn from him, and that they certainly did. Thanks to Miko, we did not miss a beat when the cell phone standards changed from AMPS to GSM. A lot of companies around the world were left behind. And us, we were in the front of the pack. This kept the competition behind. We also had a standard way of protocol of being able to make good, favorable deals. So much that at one point the average monthly cell phone bills were over $800 compared to $10 today. Here is how we did it. Every deal would start with Miko or me making friends. He would impress people with his endless knowledge of the cell phone technology. And he and they would have what Miko called dinner without boundaries. Yes, dinner without boundaries. I think the guests thought that meant we can discuss everything and anything, when really Miko was just referring to the food itself.